Okay, so when headphones fail, it can be quite frustrating. Sometimes the signal will only be coming out of one side, or maybe the signal will be crackly, or maybe there might not be any sound at all. But thankfully, headphones are actually really easy to fix. So what you'll need is a replacement 3.5mm headphone jack. Now these are quite easy to get hold of, you can find them on eBay and in hardware stores. I recommend metal ones if you want to have something robust, but the plastic ones are decent enough as well. So once you've got this, you'll need to get yourself a soldering iron and some solder, and you'll also need some wire cutters, scissors and pliers, and finally you'll need some electrical tape and a damp piece of sponge or cloth which is going to be used while soldering. So the first thing to do is cut off the old faulty headphone jack. Now what you need to do is get your wire cutters and strip off the outer rubber sheathing to expose the individual cores inside. Most headphones have 3 internal wires, but this isn't always the case. Sometimes there can be 4 wires, and sometimes one of the wires can be wrapped around the other 2. If either of these is the case with yours, use this image as a reference so that you know how to wire it up later. Now it's time to prepare your 3.5mm jack. So what you need to do is unscrew its casing and then have it held so you can easily work on it with the soldering iron. If your jack's casing is made of metal, it'll probably have a little plastic shield. But these are a bit fiddly to work with, so when we come to it later I suggest replacing it with electrical tape. Now it's time to begin adding solder to each of the contacts on the 3.5mm jack. What you need to do is touch your soldering iron and your solder to each one individually at the same time. This will allow the solder to flow onto the contact. Every so often, just wipe your soldering iron on a damp piece of sponge or cloth, which just wipes off any excess solder and keeps it in good condition. Try and keep the length of time your soldering iron is touching to a minimum, as you don't want to damage anything. After you've done this for all 3 connections, it's now time to start preparing the wire. So the first thing to do is take the casing and thread it onto the wire. Don't forget to do this because it's quite important, and make sure you put it on the right way around. The next thing to do is check whether any of your wires need trimming, because you want to avoid any excess. I ended up trimming mine to about this length. Next you need to add solder to the ends of each of your wires. Most headphones have a special coating on the wire to prevent shorts, so you'll probably need to give it a good few seconds with the soldering iron just so that it gets through that coating and makes good contact. So now it's time to solder the wires to the headphone jack. You need to make sure that each wire goes to its correct connector. Don't worry about left and right for now, because it's something we'll sort through trial and error. Just make sure that you get the ground wire connected to the ground contact and the signal wires connected to the signal contacts. If your headphones are like mine with 3 wires, connect the silver or golden wire to the ground contact and the 2 coloured wires, in this case red and blue, to the signal contacts. Otherwise, refer back to this image if you need help choosing which wire goes where. Now it's time to check whether it works, and also whether you've got left and right the right way around. So plug them into your computer or laptop and listen to this section of the video. This is the left channel, and this is the right channel. So hopefully what I just said came out of the corresponding side on your headphones. But if not, just swap the signal wires around on the jack. To desolder them, just touch the soldering iron to the wire and it should come away easily. So after swapping them around, give it another test, and if everything is good, use your pliers to crimp the ground connection onto the wire to make it nice and secure. Next, cut off some electrical tape and wrap it around the contacts, just to prevent shorts between the contacts and the casing if the casing is made out of metal. Once this is done, you can move up the outer casing and screw it to the jack. Using the pliers can be quite useful if you want to get it nice and tight. And there we have it, your headphones should be as good as new. Give it one final test and rock on!